Welcome. You're connected to transmissions from the Campfire. I am the operator. Our narratives of the odd, the humorous, and the downright horrifying bring a measure of warmth to your weary soul, if only for a moment. A much-needed relief from the cold, cruel world that surrounds us all. Each tale is written by Quinn Kitson, whose works include novels Talented and Pyre, and short story compilations Night and Day. Each transmission is produced, engineered, and performed by myself, Daniel Kelley. Please, sit back, savor your drink of choice, and enjoy. This is Kudzu. As the headlight beams on the slow-moving automobile cast their yellowed glow into Stephen's eyes, he winces. 15 past 11, and this was the first customer since, well, whenever he'd started his shift at least. A couple hours, maybe. Still, he adjusts the collar of his tacky orange polo shirt with a dopey little green UFO logo on it as the black car comes to a stop outside his booth and the occupant gets out. Whoever they are, they're covered top to bottom in a bright yellow rain slicker. Smart, too, with the downpour such as it is. Stephen has been listening to the beating of the raindrops on the corrugated metal roof of the small gas station for several hours now. Tick, 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 tick on the rusty metal. It never seems to stop. In his hometown of Mountain City, Georgia, the rain never seemed to relent but for the odd fortuitous day out of 7 each week, when the clouds would crack and the light bolts would blast the soaked land, briefly offering hot relief from the water mire and the gray skies overhead. Blue filled up the air and the birds sang, giving it just enough time, a day maybe, for the soil to become dry to the touch before the clouds would reseal and resume to drop buckets for days on end. It was that time of year, and the entirety of the population, all 247 of them, had come to live with it. The invasive kudzu vines that wrap their choking tendrils around anything they can. Trees, power lines, old brick buildings and factories, dilapidated barns with peeling red paint and condemned homes with rotting wood fences, love the rain. The rains fuel the growth of the foreign flora in its race to consume the whole of the Georgia seaboard, from Clayton in the north all the way down to St. George, just over the line. Not just Georgia, though. No siree Bob, no. The brilliant idea during the Dust Bowl to use the subtropical Asian species to hinder soil erosion had not only not particularly worked, but had blossomed into a full-blown ecological disaster spanning over 7 million acres of land between New York State and the Carolinas by the end of the century. Stephen had done a paper about it during his freshman year for Intro to Bio 107, and para-plagiarized most of it. Got an A, so all's well. A lot of good that 4-year degree from the nearby community college was doing for him now, working at the extraterrestrial-themed, unimaginatively named Saucer Stop, changing coffee pots for semi-conscious long-haul truckers and peddling gas and windshield washer fluid to the sexy soccer moms of America in their tight little leggings. This tallish figure walking up to the front entrance was surely no saucy soccer mom trying to sell her well-defined ass as gold, though. No, too rigid in the walk. Not a loose goose shaking the old caboose strut, but rather more of a stuck duck, stick in the butt kind of thing. Bad back, maybe. Who knew? The bell above the door clangs as the rain slicker shuffles into the room. Rain boots squish on the linoleum as the figure walks up to the counter. Stephen runs his fingers over his 32-year-old head, shooing the left full side of hair onto the right not-so-full side of hair. He watches as the rain slicker rolls its hood back and reveals a woman in her... That's... holy hopping shit, that's, what was it? Teresa, isn't it? It is, right? Of course it is. No one has that look of, oh goddamn, ever-loving Jesus, she's standing right goddamn here. Christ, does she... The woman with blonde hair and a narrow, almost gaunt face nods at Stephen, but doesn't meet his gaze. He watches her eyes, and after seeing nothing of recognition, she rifles through her coat pocket and hands him a $50 bill. Her voice is low and hollow when she murmurs, 50 on one, I guess. Stephen turns and drops the bill into the till and then returns his gaze to her. Need a receipt? He asks in an equally hushed manner. No, I'm good. Cool. She asks, you know how much farther it is to Clayton from here? He eyes her suspiciously. She never looks up, and in the bad, flickering lighting of the saucer stop, her skin has an almost jaundiced hue to it. Not from around here? He asks. Not anymore, she replies. It's just 5 more minutes south of here on the same road you rolled in on. Thank you, much. She moves to leave, and as she does, he notices that her hair also looks oddly aged. Trick of the light? No look back as she exits. Whatever, just so long as she was leaving. She didn't seem to recognize me. Then again, how would she? She never saw me sell her man those pills. Deacon, that was his name. Regular towny D-bag. He was the real dope for not testing them anyway. It's all too true that I didn't know they were cut with DXM. Bad thing, her dude being gone now. Another one of those party life tragedies. Thought she was flamed out too, but here she is topping up, so that's good, right? And she didn't recognize me, thank God. Couldn't have, I guess. Bad batch, what can you do? Supplier had apologized with a free half-boat of straight pills to make up for it, and that cleared up most of the clientele problems for his subs, so all's well, right? That's gotta be right. Stephen watches as Teresa stands by the car and opens the hatch to the gas tank and starts filling up. She stands, void of expression. Tick, tick, tick on the metal roof. Not 30 seconds pass before another vehicle comes up the road and pulls in front of the saucer stop. A big, black, extended cab truck with a silver roll bar and a massive deer catcher grill. An equally big, burly, hulking-shouldered young man in a maroon football jersey stumbles from the truck and drops to his knees. His red hair is wet and his blue jeans are filthy with fresh mud. He raises himself up using the door handle to gain balance and stands up. Stephen laughs in spite of himself. Oddly busy for this time of night, whatever that is. And now I've got to have one of those awkward convos about calling a cab to ease my conscience in case this dumbbell-dropping dickhead runs off the road 2 miles down and the stadies come a-hummin' for info about it later. Best to offer the guy some coffee. Stephen watches as the football player walks to the back of the truck and lifts up the bluish tarp, revealing a small red cooler. He lifts the lid, pulls a fresh beer from it, and saunters towards the saucer stop doors as he pops the top and takes a sip. Teresa is still pumping gas, seeming completely oblivious to the man in red. Great. Still capping him back. Definitely offer him coffee and hope he doesn't do a faceplant into a phone pole. Note the time just in case. What time is it anyway? His eyes move over to the clock, but his attention is temporarily drawn towards the window to his left, just next to the register on the counter. As he peers through the foggy old glass, he sees a crack of lightning light up the grove of trees nearby. It looks like they are almost writhing in the brief flash. He squints and swears he can see the shadows of the vines moving in the faint light of the neon signage out front. It looks like snakes in the dark, moving silently over each other, outlines of squiggles in the dim glow. Jesus, maybe I'm the one who needs the coffee here. Eyes must be playing tricks. What the actual fuck? The tiny, chipped gold bell above the door chirps and the wet linebacker moves through the store to the back, near the coolers. Stephen eyeballs him, but sits down on the stool behind the counter and grabs a magazine from the stand behind him. He makes a show of scanning through it while focusing on the footballer. The guy is just standing, doing nothing, in front of the beer cooler. Is he gonna try and swipe some wine coolers and jet? Wish I could just tell him that I'd gladly let him. Not like I could catch him anyway, but who really actually cares? Not a hill I'm gonna die on. No siree, Bob. The young man is still standing, seemingly frozen in front of the booze case when the woman out front puts away the pump handle and gets into her car. Just before she steps into the ride, she looks directly at Stephen and gives him the coldest stare he's ever felt, and his spine shudders as his stomach hits the floor. She recognized me. I knew she had to. She was just hiding it before, but that look. Holy shit, that look was enough to send your blood running back up your veins like cockroaches scattering from the light. He could feel needles in his fingertips. Her head disappears behind the car door and she kicks on the headlights. Just before she blasts down the road, the headlights cast their gleam into the nearby forest, and it's now definitely moving around out there, like dark, wet, interlacing fingers rubbing in and out of one another, bigger than vines or snakes. Why does it look like that? Yet another set of lights comes down the road toward the gas pumps. Another one? This is clearly the place to be tonight. It is never this busy. This is a rare thing, indeed. He was just trying to think of if it had ever happened before in his recollection, when the guy in the red jersey pulls open the cooler and yanks a bottle of wine from the second shelf. The quarterback tips back his head and slurps the rest of the beer down in 3 seconds, no more, then belches forth a guttural boom that Stephen is certain was of the paint-peeling variety. Yuck. Any humor that may have brought to Stephen's mind is washed away instantly as the man turns and Stephen is hit again with a deeply sickening feeling of the worst kind of déjà vu. It's Dave. It's fucking Dave. It can't be, but it fucking is. The footballer jersey-wearing red-haired boy tosses the empty can across the room towards a trash receptacle in the corner. It hits the wall and drops into the bin. The young man raises one fist in triumph.
He shoots. He scores. Putting 3 up on the board.
Stephen watches, horrified, as the man stumbles towards the counter, then pauses long enough to vomit all the beer he just chugged back out onto the linoleum flooring with a nasty, wet, smacking, splatting sound. It puddles and spreads out into the crack between the flooring panels. Stephen feels queasy. Maybe I should ask him if he needs me to call him,
You can clean this up when you want to, bitch. Least you can do.
Stephen doesn't understand. He watches as the tight end steps over his own clear bile and walks past the counter on his way out. The wine bottle top rips open easily in Dave's thick, hairy hands, and he pours the purple liquid down his gullet for a moment. Swallowing, he pushes open the door, and as he exits, he mumbles,
Your goddamn fault anyway. Punk pusher motherfucker.
The door opens and the bell rings again as Dave struts out into the downpour into his big truck. The door slams closed and it startles Stephen slightly. Just as Dave reaches the big black door and enters his truck, a new customer pulls up on the opposite side of the pumps, where the woman just pulled away not 2 minutes ago. A black Jeep this time, with cans trailing by strings from the bumper. More lightning hits light up the ground and thunder rumbles low. It seems almost in the random flashes of light outside like the vines are making their way across the street, wiggling like worms after a fresh rain, slithering this way and that along the cracked asphalt. And the rain was fresh, all right. All too fresh, all the damn time. This feels weird. Why is Dave here? He can't be here. Teresa was one thing, but Dave doesn't belong here. Dave can't be here. He shouldn't be. The last time Stephen saw him was at the kegger up near Three Flows Lake, partying like the BMOC he was back then. Keg stands and the rallying cheers to destroy the away team next week. Firelight and half the senior class getting toasted. Great place to offload wares. Then, as quickly as he rose up, he fell victim into his own stupid garishness. He drove drunk off a cliff on his way home from the party, and left the team utterly screwed for the rest of the year. After his funeral, they didn't win another game. Stephen knows this because he sold Dave 2 grams of coke a few hours before that. Sold a lot that night. Not that the two are related. They weren't, naturally. Of course they weren't. As the truck revs up and speeds away into the night, Stephen watches the third customer in as many minutes roll up their windows. Why are they down in this weather? Kick off their lights and exit the vehicle. And now things are getting too creepy, because here comes the bride. All dressed in white, she struggles to fit her big wedding dress out of the door of the Jeep and almost falls out of the vehicle. She slams the door and storms towards the saucer stop. A flash and the immediate, deafening crack of thunder. That one was close. The woman in the white wedding gown makes the bell ring yet again, and unlike the others, walks straight up to Stephen and stares into his eyes. Her eyes are bloodshot and narrow as they pierce into Stephen's like daggers. You're a real jerk, you know. Stephen knows why she's angry. He never met her, but he can guess who she is without much effort. He gave a few pills to a friend of his sister's who was handing them out at a bachelorette party the following week. GHB. Gamma hydroxybutyrate. Sometimes referred to as one of the so-called date rape drugs. Not so dangerous if it's just you and your girls. And just so long as you don't take too many. The bride had, though, 1 or 2 too many. I can't be responsible for every Tom, Dick, Harry, or Susie who can't drink responsibly, just as I can't be made to answer for all the sins of my dim-witted customers either. It's that simple. I don't make anyone do anything. I don't own any of this bullshit. Stephen glares back and leans forward as he speaks. Look, honey, I'm sorry you went out like that. I really am. But if you think Shut your mouth. I don't have to give you anything more. Nothing. Not even my ears to hear your confession. Stephen smirks. Confession? What do I have to confess to? What is this broad on about? She's not even... An ugly idea pops into Stephen's head, and he tucks it back right quick. Not that. I was ready to marry my man, ready to have a life and so much more. Now I'll never be able to. Now I'll never have my chance. You took that from me, you shit. Stephen sees out the window the vines and the lightning light, creeping closer and closer. He hears the thunder coming closer every time it crashes in the dark outside. The rain is pouring harder and faster, tick, tick, tick on the roof as the wind makes the trees sway. Oh. Why is she saying this? What is this? The bride has raven hair, and her pale skin makes her bloodshot eyes rage out from their sockets like fire. I'm going now, Stephen. The woman in the bride's dress walks to the door of the saucer stop and looks at the shirt Stephen is wearing, then smiles. We're all going, Stephen. Every one of us. But you. She points her finger at his chest, directly at his heart, and hisses, You and your stupid shirt can just stay right where you are. She turns and walks out of the building, but this time the bell doesn't ring out. The door just closes with a hard wham. Stephen looks at his shirt and touches the small saucer logo over his right breast. He begins to sweat as his heart starts to pump hot and hard. He runs to the door and pulls, but it does not move. As his eyes cast down to his hands, he sees on the other side of the glass door that a rope of green vine has effectively bolted the door closed from the outside. It doesn't move in the slightest as he pulls and pulls. Kudzu, great for soil erosion and securing gas station entryways. How long have I been here? Stephen wondered to himself. How many hours? How many days? Was it longer? How many times have I tried to leave? Then a more stark thought entered his mind. Does it even matter anymore? Pretty sure I know where I am and what this means. If it is what it is, then that's all it'll ever be, right? The wet, encroaching vines start to rattle the glass as the green, knotted tendrils writhe and wrap around the small building. Thicker ropes of kudzu snake around the four corners of the saucer stop, and the lights start to dim. The ground trembles and the room creaks with the stress of the open arms of the kudzu, snaking in spirals around the building as the wet leaves brush the metal roof with a sickening whoosh. The lights overhead go out. How long have I been here? Too long. With no end in sight, he feared. No holy light, no pearly passage to gain entry to, no rest. Just the sinking feeling that this was what awaited every moment of eternity. The specters of those he had wronged filling up their gas tanks as the vines held him prisoner under the unrelenting torrent of cold Georgia rains. So all's well. Tick, tick, tick. Who doesn't have a skeleton in their closet? It's tempting to deny those actions we are less than proud of, those best left in the mists of our pasts. However, someday we may each find ourselves in limbo, that place where time stretches like taffy. Will we endlessly relive our best days? Or perhaps, instead, we might find ourselves paying eternal restitution for our sins, while an ever-relentless warden keeps silent watch. Kudzu is an original work of fiction written by Patrick Quinn Kitson. More of Patrick's work is available in the short story collections Night and Day and the forthcoming novels Talented and Pyre. Transmissions from the Campfire is produced by myself, Daniel Kelley, and by Patrick Kitson. Tonight's episode was engineered and performed by me, and is a copyrighted work that may not be reproduced or re-uploaded in part or in full without express written permission. If you enjoyed our show, you can find more episodes of Transmissions from the Campfire on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or your favorite podcast directory. Please be sure to subscribe to be notified when new transmissions are received. Now, zip your jacket and cinch your collar tight as the light of the fire dies down, and our momentary warmth gives way to the return of the cold bitterness of the outside world. Stay safe, traveler, until we meet again around the campfire.